Have you ever tried to forget someone, but somehow they keep coming back into your mind, not just once, not just twice, but over and over again, at random moments when you're alone, when you're working, even when you're trying to sleep? Their face shows up, their voice echoes in your head, and suddenly you're stuck thinking about them again. And the worst part, you don't even know why, because sometimes it's not someone you love. Sometimes it's not even someone you talk to anymore, and yet your mind refuses to let them go. So what's really happening here? Why does your brain keep bringing back the same person again and again, even when you don't want it to? Well, the answer is not what most people think, because it's not just about feelings, it's not just about memories, and it's definitely not random. There is a psychological reason behind it, a deep one. And once you understand it, you'll start seeing your thoughts differently, because sometimes the person you can't stop thinking about is not actually about them. It's about something unfinished inside you. Think about this for a moment. Your brain is not designed to let go of incomplete things. In fact, your mind hates unfinished stories. There's something in psychology called the Zeigarnik effect. It means your brain remembers incomplete situations more than completed ones. That's why you can easily forget what you ate last week, but you can't forget a conversation that never got closure, a message that was never replied to, a relationship that ended without explanation, a moment where you didn't say what you really felt. Your brain keeps going back to it and trying to complete it over and over again, because to your mind it's still open, still unresolved, still unfinished. And that's exactly why you keep thinking about that person, not because they are special, but because the story is incomplete and your brain is trying to finish it. But here, where it gets deeper, sometimes it's not even about closure. Sometimes it's about emotional intensity. Your brain doesn't remember everything equally. It remembers what is emotional, what is intense, what made you feel something strong, because emotions are what make memories stick. So if someone made you feel extremely happy, extremely valued, or even extremely hurt, your brain marks that moment as important. And important things don't get ignored. They get replayed again and again and again. That's why you don't think about every person in your life. You think about the ones who made you feel something different, something intense, something you're not used to. And your brain keeps going back to it and trying to understand it, trying to process it, trying to make sense of it. But there's another layer to this. And this one is even more powerful. Sometimes you're not thinking about the person, you're thinking about the version of yourself that existed when you were with them, the way you felt, the way you acted, the way you saw life. Because certain people don't just enter your life. They change your emotional state. They change how you experience things. They make ordinary moments feel different, more alive, more meaningful. And when they leave, you don't just lose them, you lose that version of yourself too. And your brain keeps trying to go back to it, not necessarily to them, but to that feeling, that identity, that emotional version of you. And that's why it feels so hard to let go. Because you're not just letting go of a person, you're letting go of a part of yourself. But here's something most people don't realize. The more you try to stop thinking about someone, the more your brain forces you to think about them. It sounds strange, but it's actually how your mind works. There's something called the ironic process theory. It means when you try not to think about something, your brain keeps checking if you're thinking about it, which ironically makes you think about it more. For example, if I tell you right now, don't think about a white bear. What just happened? You thought about it immediately because your brain had to check. And the same thing happens with people. The more you tell yourself, I need to stop thinking about them, I should move on, I don't care anymore, your brain keeps bringing them back just to check. And suddenly you're stuck in a loop thinking about them because you're trying not to think about them. And this loop can go on for days, weeks, even months. But there's one more reason, and this one is uncomfortable because it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with you. Sometimes you keep thinking about someone because they triggered something deeper inside you, an insecurity, a desire, a fear, or even a need you didn't realize you had. Maybe they made you feel seen. Maybe they made you feel important. Maybe they gave you attention in a way no one else did. And your brain doesn't forget that. Because once your mind experiences something it lacks, it starts craving it. And when it's gone, it keeps going back to the source, that person, over and over again. But here's the twist. It's not always about love. Sometimes it's about validation. Sometimes it's about ego. Sometimes it's about what they represented, not who they actually were. And that's why even if they weren't perfect, even if the situation wasn't healthy, your mind still goes back to them. Because your brain is not logical, it's emotional. It remembers how something felt, not whether it made sense. And that's why you can know that someone is not right for you and still think about them constantly. Because logic doesn't control memory, emotion does. And once emotion is involved, things get complicated. But here, where it becomes really interesting, because sometimes thinking about someone constantly is not a sign that you should go back to them. It's a sign that you need to understand something within yourself, a pattern, a need, a behavior, because your mind doesn't repeat things without a reason. It repeats things to show you something, to make you aware of something, to help you process something. But most people miss that. They assume, if I'm thinking about them, it must mean something about them. The truth is, it says more about you, your mind, your emotional patterns, your unresolved thoughts. And until you understand that, the loop doesn't stop, because your brain is still trying to solve something, still trying to complete something, still trying to understand something. And that's why you keep thinking about them. But here, where things take a deeper turn, because thinking about someone constantly can slowly turn into something much stronger, obsession. And obsession doesn't start loudly. It starts quietly with small thoughts, short memories, random reminders. But the more attention you give those thoughts, the more your brain starts feeding them. Because your mind follows a simple rule: whatever you focus on grows. So when you keep replaying moments, rereading old messages, imagining conversations that never happened, you're not just remembering them, you're reinforcing them. You're training your brain to prioritize that person. And over time, they become a mental habit, not just a memory, a pattern. That's why even the smallest triggers, a song, a place, a word, can bring them back instantly, because your brain has linked them to multiple emotional cues. And once those connections are built, they don't fade easily. But here's something even more powerful. Your brain doesn't just remember people, it edits them, it reshapes them. It highlights certain moments and ignores others, which means you're not always thinking about the real person. You're thinking about a version of them that your mind has created, a version that feels perfect, a version that feels meaningful, a version that fits your emotional needs. And this is where idealization begins. You start focusing on the good moments, the smiles, the conversations, the way they made you feel. And slowly, your brain starts removing the flaws, the problems, the red flags, the things that didn't work. Because your mind is trying to protect the feeling, not the truth. And that's dangerous. Because now, you're not attached to reality, you're attached to an illusion. And illusions are much harder to let go of, because they were never real to begin with. But let's go even deeper. There's a reason why your brain keeps returning to certain people. It's because they match a pattern you've seen before, maybe from your past, maybe from your childhood, maybe from previous relationships. Your mind is constantly trying to recreate familiar emotional experiences, even if those experiences weren't healthy, because familiarity feels safe, even when it hurts. So sometimes, you're not thinking about that person because they are right for you, you're thinking about them because they feel familiar, because they match something your brain already knows. And that's why breaking that cycle feels so difficult, because you're not just letting go of a person, you're breaking a pattern, and breaking patterns requires awareness. But here's the most important part. How do you actually stop thinking about someone? Not by forcing your mind, not by distracting yourself endlessly, not by pretending you don't care, because none of that works long term. The real way to stop the cycle is to understand it. You need to ask yourself, what exactly am I attached to? Is it the person, or is it the feeling they gave me? Is it them? Or is it the version of myself I became around them? Is it reality, or is it the story I created in my head? Because once you start answering these questions honestly, something shifts. The emotional intensity begins to drop, the illusion starts breaking, and your brain slowly stops replaying it, because it no longer needs to solve anything. It understands it. And understanding is what closes the loop, not time, not distance, awareness. That's what gives your mind closure. But there's one final truth, and this one is uncomfortable sometimes. You don't miss the person, you miss the feeling. And once you learn how to create that feeling within yourself, you stop chasing it outside. You stop going back mentally. You stop replaying the same thoughts, because your brain no longer depends on that memory. And that's when freedom begins. So if you've been thinking about someone constantly, don't just ask, why can't I forget them? Ask a better question. What is my mind trying to show me? Because once you understand that, you don't just move on, you level up. And the person who once occupied your mind slowly becomes just a memory, not a loop.